But we'll move on to the next interaction, because you know that at the forefront of all this is to make sure that all of us get to know our status ultimately, if that was possible. And talking about innovation, KNUST and then a private firm called INCAS, they've developed a test kit, and it's supposed to aid in rapid testing of samples. It's very innovative, considering what they've been saying. They've reduced the time span for coming out after the testing period of results. We hope that this interaction that Kojo is going to have would also give us more insights, and that is up next. Well, Kojo, are you ready now?
Yes, absolutely. When you said up next, you made me think we were going for a commercial. Okay, Ro, thank you for that. Thank you so much. Now, you can see this lovely lady next to me. This is Dr. Augustina Silverkin. She works at KCCR, and she's a member of the team that developed this new testing kit alongside the private diagnostic firm INCAS. INCAS Diagnostics. All happened in Kumasi, which makes me very, very proud, But the reason why I'm particularly excited to speak to Dr. Silverkin is because she's my childhood friend. I've known her since I was a kid. Dr. Silverkin, thank you so much for making the time to speak with us. And congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Thank you.
So let's start at the beginning. You've developed a new kit. Tell us about it.
So a very good morning to your cherished viewers and your listeners. So just for all of us to know that we facilitated, so to say, in the development of this kit together with INCAS and obviously KNUST. We are all excited about this development. It was led by the CEO of INCAS, a very young, vibrant man, and I'm sure one of the days you get the chance to meet up with him. So this is a rapid diagnostic kit. As the name suggests, it means that it is able to detect whether you have COVID-19, so the SARS coronavirus 2 or not. And it is able to do this detection within 15 to 20 minutes. The exciting thing is that you don't have to use sputum, you don't have to use nasal wash, you don't have to use lavages, bronchoalveolar lavages. You don't have to use nasal washes, but you have to use blood, a drop of blood. It is actually a casket.
Wait, what are lavages? Just before you continue.
So you have to expectorate it from the lungs, for example. And this This has to be done in a hospital, so you can't sit at home and do it. So usually for the current diagnostic method being used to identify or diagnose SARS coronavirus 2, you have to, the one taking the sample needs to be in a full PPE because the person needs to protect him or herself. And the suspected case needs to produce cough from within and produce sputum, or the person needs to do nasal washes or lavage, like I said. Or interestingly, we can also use a special form of swab known as a flogged, not the usual cotton-based swabs, but then you need a flogged swab to swab the area behind the tonsils. And then
these are all the old ways of doing it, right?
Yes, the old ways of doing it. And then you dip it in a transport medium because you have to send it to the lab. And once this material or this specimen gets to the lab, it needs to be opened up under what we call a biosafety level 3 condition. So a specialized lab with a negative pressure, because this is a new virus. In fact, ideally, if you want to grow, so in microbiology, we say if you want to culture the virus, so look at the viability of the virus, and you've got to do this under biosafety level 4 conditions. So when you watch movies, you see people working like they are working in space, and they have external oxygen and all those things. And we don't have such facilities in Ghana. I think in Africa, there are 2 of such labs, one in Gabon, I think, and of course, one in South Africa. But
so how have we been doing it?
Yes, so I'm coming So this is when you want to grow or culture the virus. But
Okay.
for us and Noguchi, we have a biosafety level 3 containment. So this is such that you are able to play around the virus. You have to inactivate the virus, because obviously if you want to grow it, then you will not be able to grow the virus under our conditions. So you have to inactivate the virus, and this time around isolate the genetic aspect of or the genetic material within the virus. So what we know as RNA. So the genetic material could be DNA, or it could also be RNA. But because this is a strict RNA virus, we end up isolating the RNA. And then even before you do the isolation, it depends on the type of specimen you have received. So if you receive sputum, we know sputum is mucoid, so it is thick, and it will take a very long time for you to reduce that thickness. So you have to do something known as pre-preparation activities, and this can take a while. And so that if you have received sputum, then you end up spending more time in even only isolating the RNA of the virus. Now, once you have isolated the RNA, you do something we call polymerase chain reaction. So as the name, it implies that you do series of reactions, so different ramping temperatures. You increase the temperature, reduce it, increase it several times. So you've got to do this for like 45 minutes, also in an enclosed machine. So from the point where you have collected your sputum to when you have actually done your PCR and have obtained your results can take as long as 6 hours. But like I said, it depends on the sort of specimen, your starting specimen.
Right.
But this particular rapid test is such that you only need a drop of blood. So for the ladies who have done pregnancy tests before, it is just like the pregnancy test. You put a drop of blood, it's a casket. You put a drop of blood in a certain area, and you add a buffer or something known as a diluent, so it is liquid. And the expectation is that there should be movement of something incorporated into the buffer, so or the strips. This is based on a lateral flow method. So if you have, for example, been exposed to the virus, and as well as beyond being exposed, your body has reacted to the presence of the virus, then it will be shown that you have something known as some antibodies, IgG and IgM. So this forms which means that really you only need a drop of blood. You need your diluent, which always comes along with the rapid test kit, and then you are good to go.
So, Dr. Silverkin, that means that what you have developed is an antibody test. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So, if I may ask, if I, for example, let's assume I have had COVID-19, but my symptoms were mild, or I had no symptoms, like some people. So I never knew, and I've now gotten over it. I'm now negative. I've recovered. If you take my blood with your test kit, it will still show antibodies, won't it? Because I've built resistance.
Absolutely. It is like...
But I may not have COVID-19.
You are right. And this has a lot of very good implications, because if you want to, for example, now we know that we want to, or we have already determined the so-called hotspots. So when you go to the Ghana Health Service website, there's a heat map which shows where the hotspots are. And we know that when they are doing the contact tracing, ideally, they need to demarcate an area around the supposedly hotspots. And if you have to trace like 5,000 people around this hotspot, you cannot, you need a lot of resources. You need to spend close to 6 hours in being able to say whether all the contacts are positive or negative. But let's assume that once this or those who are the cases, the active cases, so those who have the virus, the viral RNA, for example, they use the same water closet, or they use a community-based amenity with you, chances are that you may have met them, they may have coughed, so you may have been exposed. Now, in this case, when we are doing contact tracing, especially for surveillance purposes, then it becomes very important that instead of collecting sputum from 5,000 people, you can just use this rapid test to enable you know the population or the number of people who have been exposed to the virus. It is like walking on the seashore. As you take your steps, you leave footprints. Right. But once you have left these footprints, it doesn't mean that whoever created those footprints, the person is still around. But it gives you an idea that, oh, at least a tiger or an elephant or a human being has appeared in this particular environment. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does.
Sorry, go ahead.
And for example, if we want to, my only worry is that it's as if we don't have a clear strategy when it comes to our diagnostic method for COVID-19 in Ghana. And so if we want to do massive or aggressive contact tracing, so for example, it becomes necessary that for anyone who boards a bus, at least we've got to know whether the person has been exposed before or not. I mean, it will be unheard of if we decide to, for example, collect their sputum samples. We ask them to wait before they go or embark on their journeys. But if we, for example, do this rapid test, we will at least have an idea that, oh, XYZ persons or XYZ percentage of those boarding the bus have been exposed to the virus before.
But let me ask you this. So when you were answering my question earlier, you said that what it will do is it will tell you whether I have been exposed. It will not tell you whether I am still positive and still infectious, right?
Yes. So
if we take the example of people trying to board a bus, and you want to know whether you should let someone board or not, and you test everyone, and a number of them come out positive. What it means is that they've been exposed, but they may not be infectious.
Yes, so the kits, like I said, it has IgM and IgG. So for IgM, it tells you whether you are in the acute phase, so whether you have been recently infected. And we know that these antibodies are produced after 7 days of you being exposed to the virus. So, for example, if you have the virus, but you are not showing the signs and symptoms, maybe your body is starting the buildup of the antibodies. Now, this kit, the IgM, will be able to tell you that you have been recently you have been infected recently. So again, it has a lot of positives in determining those who have been exposed before, those who have been recently infected, and those who have built some level of protection against this particular virus.
Okay, now,
but of course, Kojo, I need to let you know that these are early days yet. We know that there are regulatory bodies in this country, so we have sent we have initiated the processes. We have been asked to send them some number of the test kits to the FDA, and they need to evaluate it. They need to evaluate it. Then they can validate it for its use. And I'm sure in it being validated for use, there will be the inclusion of the Ministry of Health, for example, because you know that testing for COVID is not just anything you get up and do. You need to be cancelled some way, somehow. So we don't know whether at a point in time, you can walk into a pharmacy shop and purchase it as if you are purchasing a pregnancy test, for example. So these are early days.
It needs to be evaluated and validated. Exactly. Which institutions will do this?
The FDA, I'm sure, because KNUST, KCCR had a role, or still has a role to play in the generation of this particular rapid test kits, it will be a sort of conflict of interest if we are asked to evaluate it. So maybe other labs such as Noguchi may be asked to evaluate it, to look at the sensitivity, the specificity, the rate at which the buffer moves, for example, maybe even the appearance of the casket. And these things will be.
But this will all be done under the auspices or supervision of the FDA?
Absolutely.
Which body will then approve it at the end of the process?
The FDA, because we know that they are the approving agency when it comes to food, medications, equipment, medical devices.
So have you applied to them for this process to begin? Do you have a timeline? Do you know when you will get your response from them?
So the CEO of INCAS was actually in Accra yesterday, and he's been asked to send them some copies of the rapid test kits. And I'm sure as soon as this is done, the processes will be initiated. I mean, the processes have already been initiated, but we are really looking, and I think now there's an expedited clearance of a sort. I mean, we need this kits to at least enable us take some measures regarding surveillance and the number of people who have been exposed and things like that.
Yeah. So there's a need to move fast.
Yes. The unfortunate thing is that usually for these tests, most of the time the manufacturing companies are asked to bring them in huge numbers, and so I don't think anybody sitting in the UK or China or wherever on the planet will be excited in bringing like 10,000s of these test kits just for FDA to tell them that no, it doesn't meet our standards. But then
is that what the FDA is asking for?
No, this is not. I'm just citing an example, and I'm getting to the point that look, every single thing has been done within the country. So for example, even when it came to the printing of the casket, one company, a local company situated in Kumasi, obviously did it free of charge. So they used the 3D in printing the casket, and I think this is so very good. The fact that a very young, energetic scientist has been able to do this, and every single thing is being done within the country, and I think it's a plus.
All right. We'll come to that. We want to learn a bit more about the people behind it in a moment, but I want us to get through a full understanding of this kit and what it does, and then we'll get to that. So you were saying that in terms of timelines from the FDA, the process has just begun, but have you already, as developers of this apparatus, have you tested it on human beings already? You've already gone through that?
No, I mean, of course, once you come up with some of these kits, you have to test them yourself so that you have an idea. So sometimes you may test and realize that you have to use different antigens, or you have to add some few other things, bits and pieces. And these things have been done in our lab at KCCR. So this is the critical role we played in the development of this particular RDT. But beyond this, it needs to go through the regulatory bodies. They have to also send it to a different lab for them to assess the sensitivity, the specificity, and all this.
So that means you haven't actually taken samples of COVID-19 patients and perhaps samples of those who have recovered and tested them to see whether they could give any different results. You haven't actually done that.
So we've done just some very basic stuff, and this is what research is about. You sit in your lab, you take some few samples, those in the acute phase, those who have recovered, and then you apply it. So
you have used some samples. You have taken some human samples and used them. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, just some very few samples.
Okay, and it worked. I mean, did you find that if you test the sample of someone who has recovered, who will have antibodies, and you test the sample of someone who is who has the disease and has not recovered, did you find any differences in the results?
It gave us very good results, but usually for these things, you want to keep them in your lab, and you don't want to run ahead of the FDA. So you want to give them the chance, otherwise they may be pre-informed So you want to stay back and just give it out for them to go and test it. Of course, you have to look at something known as the sensitivity, the specificity. You have to calculate the positive predictive value, the negative predictive value. You have to get or have a gold standard which you compare your new test kit with. And I think all these things will be done by or through the FDA.
Okay, so assuming that this goes through all the approvals and you are good to go, the FDA approves it. What's the capacity in the manufacturing capacity? How many of these things can you make? How quickly can they become available for mass use?
So INCAS, they tell us they can produce 10,000 and they can scale up to 60,000, which I think is
per day or per week, or
so 60,000 will be per week.
Right. Okay.
And I'm sure once it takes off, chances are that they can easily increase in their numbers. And of course, they would definitely also need support from well-meaning Ghanaians to enable them go into the mass production. They already, the interesting thing is that this is actually not the first kit INCAS has come up with. They have produced or they have manufactured pregnancy tests. They have a test for syphilis. They have tests for yours and a couple of other rapid tests. So this is something they have been doing. And this is something they have been doing all this while. Just that's like I said, every single one of us, we have been very quiet. And
Okay, so you talked about the fact that some parts of this kit was 3D printed. So they used a 3D printer to make the caskets, you said. Tell us about the rest of the kit. What sort of materials go into the manufacturing of it? How scarce are these materials? Are they all, can we locally source them all?
Quite a number, but again, the fascinating thing is that this young man developed or processed 3 antigens all by himself. And there's a company in the UK known as Mologic. I think they also helped the Senegalese. I mean, as for Senegal, I don't think they have gotten to where we are, and for them again, they don't have these production units in country, so chances are that theirs will be produced, so to say, in the UK. So this young man did everything by himself, 2 good antigens, and the plan is even to add some more antigens, and then we'll see.
What is the antigen? Tell us, what does the antigen do? So
the antigen is what has been put on the kit. And then once you add your blood sample, the assumption is that it would contain the antibodies. There will be a reaction or there will be an activity. It is like having a key to a car. So you unlock it and then you can actually spark the car and move the car. So
is that the same as like the reagent that we keep hearing about? With the existing test, the PCR test?
No, the PCR operates on a different level.
What I mean is the antigen equivalent to the reagent?
No.
Okay.
As for the PCR, you are dealing with the RNA of the virus. For the antigen antibody, these are produced in the blood. Once your body sees or is exposed to a new pathogen, it reacts to the presence of the pathogen. It is like thieves coming into your house. Depending on your defensive structures, the thieves can easily break into your house and come and kill you, or you can have very well secured defensive system. So this is the principle behind this antigen and antibody reaction.
And they were developed locally.
Yes.
So is there any part of the test that has to be imported?
For now, no. For now, no, because he has developed the antigens in country. The only thing is that Mologic in the UK wants to send them another antigen. So this will be the only thing he may end up importing. But almost everything is in country. And
so the current capacity is about 10,000 a week, and that can be scaled up to about 60,000 a week once you get approval.
Yes.
Okay, now to be clear, this is an antibodies test, right? Not a PCR test, just to be clear. Okay, and so what it could...
And again, Kojo, I need to emphasize that this particular rapid or this particular kit is just here to complement. It is not replacing PCR, because we know PCR is the gold standard. If I am infected, the PCR has very, very high sensitivity. It is able to detect up to 1 copy number of the virus. So it is not going to replace it.
Explain what that means. What is 1 copy number of the virus?
The viruses are counted in copy numbers. So if you have only one virus, it's an RNA virus. If it hasn't replicated into 2, then you have just 1. And your assay should be so sensitive. So it should be able to tell you that indeed this sample is positive when it is indeed positive. It should, so that is for sensitivity. And it should also be able to tell you that this assay or this kit is very specific, such that if it is if the sample is negative, it should be able to tell you that indeed it is negative. And so all these things are taken into consideration when people are coming up with test kits.
Okay, and when you were developing this new test kit, first of all, tell us, what name have you given it so we can refer to it by its name?
It is, I have one here, it is Covid-19 IgM/IgG Rapid Test Kit.
Okay, well, that's quite a mouthful. We'll just call it the Rapid Test Kit.
Yes,
okay for now.
Obviously, yes.
All right. So, in developing this rapid test kit, I mean, what was the sensitivity levels that you at KCCR, along with INCAS, what was the sensitivity levels that you discovered?
So, like I said, I don't want to go ahead of the FDA. We don't want to talk about the sensitivities and the specificities. I think we need to allow the FDA to do its work.
You feel like if you mention these things, it will sort of prejudice their work?
Yes.
Prejudice their work? Okay.
Yes. Because, I mean, once they do their evaluations, chances are that they may come back and tell us that, look, play around the specificity a bit, play around the sensitivity, or maybe if you add 1 or 2 more antigens, it will increase or it will improve the sensitivity or the specificity. I need to also say that there's nothing like a bad test. You only need to optimize it, like we say in the lab. So you have to play around it, make it better, and make it much better for its intended use.
All right. So to hit on the major points here, this is an antibodies test. Okay, so it tests for the antibodies in the subject, or the blood, and that will tell you whether the person has been exposed. It will not necessarily tell you whether the person currently has COVID-19.
So it will tell you whether the person has been recently infected or has
Why is that important?
Recently.
Why is that important?
Again, it is important because you get to know whether the person, so we know that this IgM is produced around day 7 of, once the virus gets into your system, your body reacts to it, and then IgM is produced around day 7. And we even know that there's actually an overlap between the production of IgG and IgM. And like I said, IgM usually is produced around day 21. So it's actually after the incubation period of the virus. But within that incubation period, which is 14 days, the IgM, you would see it's being produced around day 3, day 7. But again, it depends on the individual. Like I said, if you have very strong defensive systems, then it means that it may take a while. If you are very weak, you are already immunocompromised, then it will take a very short while for the production of these.
Okay, so Dr. Silverkin, I was bad at science, so you have to help me out here. Will this test kit tell you whether the person currently has COVID-19, or and will it tell you if the person is cured? Will it give you that specific information?
So if the person is cured, it means that the person has recovered. it will tell you that the person has built some antibodies. So the person has been exposed before. And then again, it will also tell you, the IgM will tell you that the person has been recently infected.
So this test can tell you whether the person currently has it or has recovered?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So
but it will not,
that is interesting. Sorry, I'll let you complete that.
It will not tell you, for example, the number of copy numbers you have in your system.
But you will be able to tell for a fact that this person currently has it. This person is infectious, as opposed to this person has recovered.
We know that for some people or some individuals, they are asymptomatic. So they may be harboring, they actually harbor the virus, but they may not show any signs and symptoms of the infection. And in this case, it means that the body has seen the virus, because before you even start showing the signs and symptoms, the virus would have already established itself in you. So around day 7, your body would have built some antibodies, and this antibody is what we call IgM. So if you are recently infected, then the antibody IgM will be able to tell you that yes, indeed, you have the virus and you have been recently infected.
Does that mean that such a person can infect others?
Yes.
Okay.
It means that such a person can infect others.
And can this test also tell you if the person has recovered?
Well,
and
we have to wrap up this conversation.
Yes, so it tells you that the person has recovered, but the person doesn't have any viral
we have to wrap up the conversation
in his or her system. But then the person has produced antibodies.
Right. Okay, I'm hearing from the studio, it sounds like our time might be up. But Dr. Silverkin, I think we have to continue this conversation, you and I, and get some clarity on this. So we will actually have a conversation on Zoom and record that later for playback, on our network, so that you can really, really educate us on this. But so exciting, very exciting news from Kumasi with the development of this kit. And we eagerly anticipate the outcome of the verification process.
Definitely. Thank you, Kojo.
Thank you too. Dr. Augustina Silverkin is with KCC. They, alongside INCAS Diagnostics, have developed a rapid testing kit which can test for antibodies, COVID-19 antibodies in subjects. Very exciting.
Well, thank you. Next, we have a discussion. Mama Vio Sabwaje is coming up next with it.